drew you to this incredible role?
Mike Mills, who wrote it and directed it, contacted me, wanted me to read the script first before he met me. And I knew about his movie Beginners, which I loved, which is just incredible. And Christopher Plummer is amazing in it, and I just liked the whole movie. And I'd heard Mike interviewed, so I didn't know him, but I thought, who's this guy? He's so unusual. So he gave the script to a number of people to read and just said, okay, see what you think. So I read it and I just loved it because it was actually where I grew up. I didn't grow up in Santa Barbara where it is, but it's San Diego. So I guess I had never read a film that was actually from where I was from.
Wow.
And even though I was the young girl at that time, I was 19 in 1979. But so it just knocked me out and I loved it. And it's the screenplay really reflects the movie. The movie's very eccentric in the way that it's put together and the way he used images and the way he uses music. And then there was this woman, Dorothea, who was this, even as I first read her, was very enigmatic to me in a way that made me excited. The other people I felt like I actually knew a little bit better, but Dorothea was sort of enigmatic, and so that got me really interested. And then Mike and I met and had dinner, and then a little while after that he asked me to do it, so I lucked out.
Wow. Great. So did you manage to work out who this enigma is?
I think that I'm still thinking about it, especially now that the movie has come out. Because Mike and I talked about it endlessly, and he showed me photographs of her, and this is his mom, but it's not his mom.
Right.
The point of departure is his mom, but it was more his interest in trying to investigate his relationship with his mom. But then in a way, he's also writing about her investigating her own kid and wanting to raise her kid, but also just the gulf between a mother and a son that love each other, that want to connect, but that there's always this gulf, maybe. That's part of what he's writing about.
Right.
That we're all trying to figure each other out, and that there's a part of your parent, maybe, that you never really know, and that that's certainly true with your children as they get older. They move away from you, and they have these lives, and so there's a part of them you don't know, and it's fascinating. So anyway.
Don't you need a man to raise a man? No, I don't think so. I think you're what's gonna work for him.
You just feel guilty because it's just me and you.
You don't know what I'm feeling.
When you play a role, do you feel as though you're like finding something new about yourself that you didn't know before in each role that you play? Because I just wonder, in terms of this mother-child relationship, whether you found something new, given that you are a mother, that you didn't know about being a mother before.
For sure. I mean, that's really the gift of getting to do what we do.
Yeah.
Is that there's this, you're devoted to a story which is outside of yourself, but at the same time, you're facing yourself in a way, and seeing, oh, this is part of me, and then, oh, wait, is this other thing a part of me? But some of the things that Mike wrote about, there was a line in the screenplay that really got me about that as a parent, you never get to see your child out in the world. Because if you're in the room with your child, the chemistry of the room changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so you never actually get to experience them the way other people do. And he was able to say that in a way I'd never really thought about it that way, but that just killed me. So that kind of a thing, I felt like, oh, that it was really just for me personally, kind of got me.
Right. And did you feel as a result that you understand your own children better in any way?
Yes, and I understand my own, whatever that word is, it's a necessary distance that is between you and your children as they become adults.
Right.
That is there's always a longing. There's always a longing for them, and that's normal. That's healthy. Hopefully, you.
On both parts, or just on the parents'
I
part?
think it's different for the parents.
Right.
If it's healthy,
Yeah.
you're separate,
Right.
and if it's healthy, you're there for them when they need you, and you try to let go. And sometimes I think I've done that. I've let go, and then something will happen, and I'll think, oh no, I really haven't let go yet.
Right.
Well, so you gonna raise my son now? Huh? You gonna raise my son? Yeah.
Yeah, Moonlight, and I'm one of those people that I saw it and I just thought it was incredibly moving and incredibly difficult and painful and full of love and angst and so much. So how did you become a part of it?
Because Jeremy Kleiner, who's one of our producers, he asked me to be involved. He'd wanted to work with me on another project, and it didn't happen. And so when this project came about, he asked me to do it. He actually told me a bit of a producer's lie, because he said that Barry had written the part with me in mind, which I discovered after the movie during promotion was in fact not true at all, and that he'd actually had to persuade Barry for him to, yeah. But I'm delighted either way that it happened, because it's one of those parts that's taught me, I think, the most about myself. So it was an incredible journey to go on.
So, yeah, because I can see that, I don't know you until today, and I can see just what an incredibly different human being you are than the woman that you play.
Yeah.
And so did you have a chance to work with the other actors? Did you have a chance to work with the director?
So it was a crazy experience, because actually what happened was I'm obviously British and I had visa issues, and so I couldn't get my visa sorted, and so it ended up being work that was going to be spread over 3 weeks ended up being condensed into just 3 days, because that's all I had. So I didn't have an opportunity to get to know any of my fellow actors, my sons in the movie. It was just kind of, in the final scene in the movie where I have this emotional, scene with my eldest son and I ask for his forgiveness. I'd met him 10 minutes before, and there were no time for any rehearsals or anything like that. So it was, it was really one of those crazy experiences. But we had such a wonderful director in Barry Jenkins that he never made me feel as though I was rushed. It always felt as though there was enough time to get all of this work done, which when I watch it, I think, how did we even think that we could do that, in such a short amount of time? But yeah, he did it.
It's like magic.
Yeah.
Because of the arc of what you did with her, from the first time we see her, where she looks like she's going to work, and then that slow progression, and because of the whole story that's going on around you, that to me is fascinating. It's interesting because, as from an acting standpoint, it's funny to be able to talk to you, because usually you're trying to talk to people who don't act about this kind of a process. And what a great thing for an acting class for you to go and just talk to actors about, you basically just have to make it up.
Yeah.
You have no time.
Yeah.
I know somebody was asking me yesterday about a picture I did that we didn't have any rehearsal time. And, they're sort of asking me, well, how did we do that? I don't know, it's what we do.
But also, I think it's interesting, because I think if you don't understand acting, then you also think that you kind of just turn up and just do it. And it does seem like, how can you do that in 3 days? But the reality is that there's so much work you do beforehand, so that you can arrive on set, you're so prepared that you can deliver that work in a very short space of time because of that preparation.
Yeah, exactly. And I also feel like there's this, I don't know how to put it exactly, but it's like our business is intimacy. Our job.
Yes, exactly.
Our job
That's really interesting. Yeah.
That is our job.
Yeah, exactly.
And to find that thing that is between people that even though you don't necessarily know the
Yeah.
person that you're playing opposite,
Yeah.
you imbue the other person with that, and you understand that that's what the camera needs to
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
and that there's something to me about that which has nothing to do with this whole situation,
Yeah.
has nothing to do with, I mean, that's really the work.
Yeah, it is.
And I love that.
And exactly, that's what I love as well, because I think in real life I find that really difficult, because everybody goes around and they're wearing these masks, right?
Yes.
We're all, you know, having to put up a front and pretend to be something that we're not really.
Yes.
We're beating hearts underneath it all, but we have to cover that up, you know, and not show our vulnerability. And it's so beautiful. What's so magical about being on a set is that everybody lets their guard, not everybody, but when you're acting with somebody, you know, as an actor, you have to let your guards down, and you have to let someone in to that most vulnerable of places, which you let very few people in, you know, and connect on a really soulful level. And that's very rare that you do that with anybody. And to do that with a stranger, I think, is such an extraordinary thing.
I don't know if we ever figure our lives out. And the people who help you, they might not be who you thought or wanted. They might just be the people who show up.
I feel very lucky
Yeah.
that that's what I get to do, and I know that each project becomes this little family. And certainly on 20th Century Women it did. It was this sort of unnatural, immediate, sort of shared vulnerability, and that there's a connection that happens that, and it also really only happens in that place. And so it sort of intrigues me about people who don't do what we do, and they don't come into the work situation with this deep intimacy and you know, shared sense of, okay, we don't have to pretend. We don't have to have small talk.
Yeah.
We can really get right down into it. And that bond, even when the project is over, like I talked to Julianne Moore the other day. We played lovers in this film, and we didn't know each other, and we barely, I mean, I think we had like a day and a half to rehearse, and we just did it. And it seemed very natural to me, and to her as well.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that vulnerability that you have to have, and you have to be willing to kind of dive in, I think it makes it quite difficult to live with that in everyday life, because
That's right.
you know, your senses have to be heightened in a way that I think generally doing other jobs you don't necessarily, well, you couldn't survive like that. I don't think.
You would go around like a wreck all the time.
Yeah. But I always think it's so amazing that people talk about actors and say they're prima donnas and, you know, they're really difficult, and because that is not my experience at all with actors, because I think they're incredibly open human beings, and they have to be able to do their job.
Right, and the fear that goes with it.
Yes.
And the insecurity, and the having to climb back up each time, and
the bravery, the steeliness.
That's
as
right,
well,
which I'm sure you had to do for this.
Yeah.
Because walking onto that set, having that amount of time, knowing
that my first scene is playing full-on crack addiction, and I miss no smoking, no alcohol drinking, no coffee drinking even, you know, health nut from London. Yeah, it was quite a departure. Wow. Yeah, it's quite something to jump into.
And you hadn't met any of them?
No.
I need some money.
For what?
That's my business. Don't you ask me no shit like that.
I don't have no money.
No, don't lie to me, boy. I'm your mama.
One of the things I really loved in your film was the way he shot it. The camera is very simple, but it's very thought out. It's very sophisticated, but it never draws attention to itself.
No.
So I was curious about that, and I can think of a few shots, even in that final scene with you and your son, when everything's breaking down, and there was something very beautiful about where the camera was, and how did that happen?
I think he just, you know, James Claxton, our cinematographer, and Barry Jenkins, what they really wanted was this you to feel as an audience member that you were in it. And I think that's what really gets under people's skin when they watch the movie. You feel like you've really entered this world and you're truly in it. And I think sometimes when the cinematography gets too fancy, it can actually make the audience feel very apart from the film, as though they are watching something
there I am,
outside
watching a camera
of it.
shot.
Exactly. And that's what they were working very hard to not do. And I think they achieved that incredibly well. So how do you feel that women's roles have changed in film over the years?
The parts themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a tricky conversation because some of the best parts that I've gotten a chance to play have been written by men. Mm-hmm. For instance, this picture, 20th Century Women, with this with 3 incredibly complex roles for women. Not only the character that I get to play, Dorothea, who for me, as I said, is still kind of enigmatic. In fact, I'm really interested as people see the film. I find myself wanting to know, well, what did you think was going on in that moment? What did you get from this or that moment? Which we were very much trying to do in a way, Mike and I, meaning for Dorothea, but that unexpected things happen. She does things that you don't necessarily expect her to do. But the complexity of Greta Gerwig's character, and then the teenage girl that Elle Fanning plays. I mean, I love the fact that there is a 16-year-old girl who has no cliches, and that there's this entire, like you were saying about life, and that there's a sort of way we present ourselves, and then there's this inner world that we all have, and that Mike managed to really capture that. So I see this kind of a project as that exemplifies how the way that we're seeing women in film is becoming less and less stereotyped, and less sort of in a box of, oh, this is a mother. And of course, it used to be, it was either good mother or bad mother. So I'm sure you can speak to that with your project, right? Because there you were playing this mom. Did you have any, when you saw the role, what did you think? I mean,
well, I always said that I was never going to play a crack addict, because, you know, I was raised by a single mother, but she was an incredibly powerful force in my life, very intelligent, very capable. Had me at 18, but went on to put herself through university. I would actually go to university with my mum, sit in the corner colouring in while she studied. She put herself through university, and then she went on to become a successful screenwriter. She's now a healer, actually. But the point being that I just saw women as strong and capable, and yet on film and on television, those weren't the women that were being represented to me. And so I just thought, at the start of my career, I'm going to make it my mission, or the criteria on which I choose roles, is going to ensure that I'm representing positive images of women. And I just thought playing a crack addict wasn't really part of that. So initially I had huge reservations about taking on the role. And it wasn't until Barry explained to me that, like your director, this was based on his own mother, you know, and that's what really touched me. And I thought, here is somebody who has a vested interest in ensuring that this character doesn't become reduced to being a stereotype, but that she gets her full humanity and complexity. And that's what you want from any role, really. You know, that's what you're asking for, the opportunity to give the character what they deserve, which is everybody deserves to have their full humanity reflected.